welcome to the Tailgate Update podcast. This should be in the Arabic numeral system, number 74, I believe. And 74, of course, is known for being the greatest year of the Gran Torino. So I want to thank all the auto enthusiasts who've been all over my Twitter feed reminding me to do that this year. Okay, 74 was the year the Gran Torino had the opera windows. So, very good year for the Gran Torino. This week we have Julie Miller, we have Ryan Besaw, and myself, Jay Moffitt.
You can see the tail of our research team, who's very excited this week.
Okay, because we got a lot to talk about. It's playoff time in a couple of different sports. But we're just really percolating up with baseball this week. So, Ryan, why don't you start us out on that?
All right, yeah, I can do that. All right, let's start over in Philly. The Philadelphia Phillies reliever Jose Alvarado has been suspended 80 games for PEDs without pay. He tested positive for exogenous testosterone. It's effective immediately, and he's ineligible for the postseason. Phillies president says that the positive test was caused by a weight loss drug Alvarado took during the offseason. Alvarado did not appeal the suspension, and he's going to serve it. And I think he comes back end of July, or end of August, I think it is.
I have a lot of questions about this.
Do you? Because I did too.
Yeah, I guess my first one is presumably a younger man who's an athlete is taking a weight loss drug. Stood out to me.
He is sort of chunky.
Yeah, I guess that's unusual to have an athlete doing that on the... To me, that stands out. I didn't know weight loss drugs had testosterone in them. Did you know that? I didn't think that was a thing.
No, I did not know that.
The only one I know that does, green tea does. Those green tea pills have a lot of caffeine in them. But other than that, the new ones, the new whey ones, I don't know.
Yeah, like I'm not sure how testosterone weaves into the story with the weight loss drug. And I'm like, we have young athletes doing weight loss drugs. I'm like, God, if they can't get their form together, who can? Yeah, those are the first two thoughts that jump out to me, but it seems like you were thinking of something else, Ryan.
I mean, I was wondering, like, how long he was taking that weight loss drug during the offseason, if it's still in the system, and we're almost 2 months into the season.
Yeah, that's also a good point, considering we can't even identify a drug that would have it in it, but if we did, that would be a really long time for it to not metabolize.
Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson are actually reinstated to be elected to the Hall of Fame.
That annoys
I guess dying gets you not banned anymore. Because, I mean, the lifetime thing really runs out once you don't have life. So
that shit pissed me off. I can see why he might want to haunt them or something after that. You know, like hang out with them wherever the committee is. You know, like throw up their papers during meetings and stuff, dump people's copies over. Because how the fuck are you gonna do all that after I died? That's all I wanted for like the last like however many years, and then you're gonna like give it to me after that? Like that's some bullshit. Like I would be gluing stuff to people's foreheads and stuff if I was up in there. Like I would be so mad. I'd be like, "Oh, got your briefcase!" Like, if Pete Rose is in there wreaking havoc, I'm not even mad about it. Because how are you gonna do that after he dies? That shit pisses me off.
It irritated the crap out of me too. Like
it feels so empty when you do it after they die. Like either do it when they die, when they're alive and they care, or just keep it going because you think his spirit isn't gonna leave this world until you do that.
I don't like Shoeless Joe hasn't played since 1920, and he's been dead since 1950.
Shoeless Joe still has a better movie made for him than Pete Rose ever did.
Well, yeah, like
8 Men Out was a classic.
It's a great movie. Yes,
that's a great movie.
That actually got me interested in the whole Black Sox thing.
It was an amazing
It was a
story.
great movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it was an amazing story. So, and you think about that was the White Sox, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And they always talk about the Cubs curse, but I mean, it was like another, what, 60, 80 years before the White Sox ever won one.
Well, let's see. That series was 1919, and they won in 2005. So,
Yeah, almost as long as the Cubs curse,
yeah,
you know?
and they haven't been good since.
Look,
Yeah.
the universe knows how to balance itself out, so you gotta stop doing this kind of nonsense if you want your stuff to work out, okay?
Oh yeah,
Like, I'm saying Pete Rose is gonna be pissed. He's gonna be like, are you kidding me? Like, you waited. Because Shoeless Joe's probably been dead for a minute, but Pete Rose just died. Like, how are you gonna do that just after that?
I think Shoeless Joe died in like 56.
Yeah, so I think
Okay.
he's probably had some more time to come to terms with that on the other side. But
Yeah,
I probably don't care too much. But how are you gonna do that to Pete Rose right after? Man,
I mean,
that's like,
Julie has me ready on my next script, you know. I mean, Cooperstown, Ghost.
oh yeah.
Cooperstown Ghost.
Yeah,
That's
you
gonna be the
got
next
Shoeless
movie.
Joe, yeah, Pete Rose, all the other guys that like cheated on baseball.
And
Cooperstown Ghost. I like that.
yeah, yeah,
Coming to a theater near you in 2031.
Yeah,
right. You never
executive
gonna.
producer Bruce Ben Stiller.
Your
We
coffee
can't.
machine always goes out right when you need it. Like
Yeah,
the
Too bad though,
printer's
because
going, but there's nothing coming out.
who are we gonna
yeah,
get to play just Shoeless Joe? I mean, Ray Liotta's passed on, so we can't
that's
Oh
true.
no.
have him play Shoeless Joe.
Oh, that was a tough one. I think we obviously lost. We all felt that loss deeply.
Oh,
He
but
just.
Pete
Yeah,
Rose.
who's
I
gonna play
wonder if
Pete? You know,
I was just to say I think Lenny Dykstra would be great to play Pete.
I
Oh wow.
suppose.
You know, Lenny Dykstra's kind of got that look.
Nah, get Bryce Harper to do it. He can grow his
Right.
hair out, shave his beard.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
So,
we'll wait for the casting a little bit
So
later, but
the thing is, though, Shoeless Joe and Pete Rose both still had to be voted in by the writers.
and none
yeah,
of it matters because they're dead. So fuck
yeah.
them.
Right. So they're
Oh,
not.
God.
They still couldn't get in if the writers are holding
Yeah.
a grudge against them.
And it doesn't matter either way.
Yeah. But you know one thing, I mean, there's nobody that Shoeless Joe like insulted in the dugout that it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah, that's true.
So no
Like
personal
Benny
grudges.
Friedman, the Jewish NFL player, like he argued his entire life, like begged to get into the Hall of Fame, and then I think after he died, they did it. After he
Mhm.
mentioned it over and over, and I was like, yeah, he said like anti-Semitism was probably a factor because of something somebody said to him, which I wouldn't be surprised because it's a factor in many things. But I
Yeah.
was just so mad when like he wanted it so badly, and he had enough talent to make it probably like based on the standards at the time because he had played a long time ago, so he would have been like in the beginning, not like now where like there's so many really really talented players. It would have been. Not that there weren't talented players before, but there would have been less competition because now we're also bringing in like older people back in the 60s and the 70s when it just started. There was less competition to get in. But no, they were just like total. They didn't do it, and he like was lamenting about it until the day he died. And I was like, it's almost a slap in the face to do it post, frankly.
Well, yeah. And if you think about it, they're already in there. They're just not enshrined.
Yeah.
Right.
Because Pete, Shoeless Joe, Buck Weaver, all those guys, they already have stuff in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's right. Pete Rose has like they have like the thing, but they say, oh, it's not Hall of Fame. It's just because of the record.
Yeah, he's in the museum as, he's got, because they still have Barry Bonds stuff in there too. And like,
But the thing about Pete Rose that people forget, oh, he's an all-time hit leader. Yes, but he also was like a stinking all-star at 5 different positions.
Yeah.
Think about that.
yeah,
An all-star at 5 different positions. If
Mhm.
you did that and had like maybe 2,200 hits, you would still be in the Hall of Fame
Yeah.
just as a defensive chameleon, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels very performative and like
Yeah. We
the
can
whole
probably
thing.
we can probably circle back to this in about 2.5 months when they have the NFL Hall of Fame game. We'll talk a little bit about basketball, okay?
Okay.
And since there's kind of the downtime in college recruiting, a lot of portal nonsense going on, but that'll be straightened out like in a week or two. We can maybe have a little bit of a discussion about who's going to be good and who's not going to be good. But as far as basketball, we're down to the Final Four on the NBA, the
Right.
Western and Eastern Conference Finals.
Mhm.
Four teams that nobody had. I mean,
Literally.
literally no
Literally.
one had.
I think some people did have the Knicks. I really do feel like some people were talking about the Knicks being in the conference
Probably.
finals.
Yeah, but I was reading out of the 22 picks by the
Mm,
11 ESPN experts,
yeah,
0 for 22. 0 for 22.
That's what we call eight sleeper picks.
that's crazy.
I mean,
Dang.
they're all front runners.
Not
Not
one team
one.
was picked.
No, everybody was wrong.
Not one person picked Indiana. They were just there last year.
It doesn't matter. Cleveland was the best record in the league. Nobody
Oh,
picked.
you're not okay. So you're not talking about beginning of the season picks.
No, no.
Oh, okay. I
I'm
thought you were
talking
talking
about the way
okay.
it wound down here at
Gotcha.
the
Okay, yeah.
end. Yeah. So
I didn't know what Cleveland was going to be because they're so stinking young.
they are, and
They're very
they're
young.
kind of injury prone too.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, Donovan Mitchell's always had injury problems around the playoffs too.
Hey, before we start talking about the playoff bracket and whatnot,
Uh-huh.
let's talk about Jaylen Brown for a second. He actually
Okay.
has a partially torn meniscus. Okay, remember we were talking about, he was taking pain injections in his
Mhm.
knee, and they said it was a bone bruise.
Yeah.
Well, it turns
Yeah.
out it was a torn meniscus. So he finished the season with it, and he's going to be evaluated to see if he needs surgery this week. So
Nice. I do love borderline medical negligence in the name of sports.
well, sometimes things don't show up originally. I mean, we talked a couple months ago when we said Stafford had played with 2 broken ribs, and they didn't know it until
Yeah, but sometimes
after the Minnesota game.
sometimes the focus on the game, playing the game, winning the game, is you choose to pay less attention because
Right.
you want the person. Yeah, and if you have a bone bruise, is that going to require that much pain medication over an extended period of time? I'm not saying, I would never say that there is actual, squirrely business going on with the medical community and sports, but I would say that maybe, they could possibly pay a little bit more attention earlier on and catch this stuff. So it does not surprise me at all. Or like getting a surgery in the middle of the season, that's done faster versus
Yeah.
quality because they want to get them back on the field. These are all very gray areas.
And the fact that he had a partially torn meniscus and still went off in game 3,
Yeah.
like he combined for 66 points was White, I think his name was.
Yeah, Derek White. Yeah.
Yeah, he combined for 66 points with that guy. So we'll see what happens with him. So there was an MJ jersey that he wore for 17 games during the 92-93. What?
Oh. No, I was just thinking if you wore it 17 games straight without putting it in the washing machine.
No, he wore it for 17 games during the 92-93 season. It sold for $2.623 million at a Heritage auction. It's the only jersey believed to be matched to any season of the Bulls' first three-peat.
Rich people ridging.
Wow.
His final jersey that he wore The Last Dance jersey,
Uh-huh.
sold for $10 million in 2022.
Jesus, and most of us can't even afford to buy a house.
No. Oh God! Imagine having $10 million and being like, "Hey,
Yeah,
I
$10
want a
million
jersey.
extra dollars.
I want a jersey to frame in my freaking den." So I'm gonna go ahead and spend my $10 million on this. Nobody better bid a penny more. Okay, we can talk about the playoffs now.
Okay. Well, I mean, my only thought is Oklahoma City is going to have a really tough time with Minnesota.
Oh, obviously, yeah,
You stink.
definitely.
So, our research team needs a shower.
That's all right. It's not the worst thing I've had said
All
to me
right,
today.
we're gonna have to call HR on that one. That is bullying in the workplace.
It is, but there's expectations
Okay.
of hygiene,
So,
okay?
the Western Conference semis, OKC takes out Denver in 7. Minnesota dismantled Golden State in 5.
Yes.
So let's do a little rundown of the Denver series. Denver won on a last second tip in, 121-119 in game 1.
The great Aaron
OKC.
Gordon. Yeah.
Yep. The dude that grew his hair out and became super duper good.
Mm-hmm.
Samson.
OKC came back in game 2, led by 51, ended up winning by 43.
They held on.
Oh, they held on, yeah. It was a scary moment there when
Okay.
the lead dropped from 51.
Yeah.
So then Denver took OT to beat them in game 3, 113-104. OKC comes back 92-87. 112-105 in game 5 for OKC. Denver extends the series to 7 with a 119-107 win. And then OKC just throttled them last night. Joker can go home now to his horses and whatever.
Yeah.
That he's always crying about being away from. He can look for his next Bond movie to play the villain in. Minnesota and Golden State. Golden State took game 1. Steph got hurt in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Missed the rest of the series. Minnesota took the next 4.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't really close, other than, well, actually 2 and 4 were close. Jimmy Butler, though, kind of stood out to me. Without Steph in the lineup, he scored more than 30 points in one game, and that was in game 3, and they lost by 5.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually 33, I think, that he scored.
Yeah.
Every other game, he was 17, 14, and 20. So, yeah, that stood out to me. Steve Kerr was raving about Jimmy Butler being in the lineup, and he just disappeared.
I mean, he's one of those great NBA players that has a brand, but the brand was made in the 2010s.
2000 teens.
Yes. This is 2025.
Yeah, I
Oh
know.
my god, I know. When people say 10 years ago and it's the 2010s, as you point out, it breaks my mind every time.
Yeah.
Jimmy made his brand when he was carrying Chicago and Miami for those years he was there.
And Minnesota.
And in Minnesota. Well, he didn't really carry Minnesota anywhere, really. He just kind of carried them along.
Yeah.
4 years in the desert.
He just charged along and looked for a way out at some point.
Same thing with Miami.
True.
When they won't let you on, when they won't let you on the plane, that's a signal.
He kind of gives a James Harden vibe. Once it gets hard, he's out. It gets tough, he wants out.
Yeah.
Well,
I do agree with you that not allowing you to travel with the team is a good sign that things might not be going well.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, you're not allowed on the plane. What? Hey.
You're asking one of those online advisors to give you tips. Does this mean they don't like me anymore?
Yeah,
Yes, that's
say
exactly what it means.
He's going to start looking at...
ChatGPT says yes.
Yeah.
He's going to sign up for BetterHelp. He needs therapy on the way home.
Yeah.
So, yeah, OKC and Minnesota play tomorrow night, which is Tuesday night. Over the Eastern Conference, Indiana beats Cleveland in 5. That series was not close at all either. other than game 2, it wasn't close.
I mean, Cleveland has one good defender. They have a reputation as being a great defending team.
Yeah.
But I mean, Indiana has so many different varied weapons.
Well, Halliburton is just going off.
Right.
He is stepping up his game tremendously. Um, he hits the game winning 3 in game 2, rips the hearts out of Cleveland. Cleveland comes back, wins by 22. But then it was like, oh, you won by 22. Guess what? We're gonna win by 20. And then
I may get reported by HR, but he's currently doing what I told him to do. So, in the corner, I will not show that because it's a unflattering view of our research team. But look, sometimes,
oh god.
sometimes public shaming works. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh, does it? Does it really?
I mean, literal results.
You know, when people look up the podcast and they're like, quote unquote, public shaming, we're number 1 on the list. We mention public shaming every week.
Why is there a thumbnail of a cat cleaning itself on a sports podcast? Now let's hop over to the Garden.
Hop over to the Garden.
I mean, which Garden you got? Boston Garden?
Peter Cottontail here.
Yeah. Okay. The Knicks take out Boston, 6 games. Boston blew 2 20-point leads in game 1 and 2. It took overtime for the Knicks to win in game 1. Game 2, it took a great defensive play to block Tatum and then get the steal to win 91-90. Boston comes back and wins. And then Tatum ruptures Achilles in game 4. At the end there. Boston
That's
still
what
wins.
I managed to capture the few minutes I watched of that game.
It was everyone that looked at it said Achilles because it looked like he'd been shot and he wasn't touched.
When he went to go for the ball, like as soon as I saw him take that step forward and he just dropped, I was like, that looks exactly like Kobe rupturing his Achilles.
Exactly like it, yeah.
I was like, oh no.
And the game was, I mean, the game is not as important as somebody rupturing their Achilles, but the game was pretty much decided by that point. It was like 8 or 10 points at that point.
I think there was like 2 minutes left in the game.
Yeah, it was like 8 or 10, 2 minutes.
And it was like a 5-point game at that point or something like that. And it was a steal that ended in a dunk. So that sealed it. But Boston came back and won by 25 in game 5.
Yeah.
But then they went to the Garden down in MSG and just never got off the bus.
No, it was pathetic. It's one of the worst. It was one of the worst to try to defend getting closed out I've seen in a while.
Yeah, they just never had an effort. No. It was like they got Brown with a torn meniscus. Tatum's out. All they really have is Derek White at this point, So what's he gonna do? He ain't him. So the Knicks close out Boston in game 6, 119-81. They move on. They're going to face Indiana in the conference finals. I believe this was the conference finals in 2000 when Indiana went to the finals to face the Lakers.
And you know what else was happening in 2000? You had Reggie Miller.
Reggie Miller, yeah.
And who's going to be calling the last TNT game for Reggie Miller? Isn't that wild? Quarter of a century apart. He calls the last TNT game.
Wow. Wait. Oh, right. I forgot they're not going to be on TNT anymore.
Right. Wow. They won't be on TNT. 14 years.
They should go back to NBC, though.
Yeah, they've been putting together a good team over there.
They
got Vince Carter.
When the NBA was on NBC, that was some good stuff.
It was. I'm trying to think. I'll have to look back to see if they had any Bill Walton. But they had
I don't quite remember.
Excellent broadcasters.
Yeah. I think they had Magic. Magic was on there at one point.
That sounds right.
Early 90s, late 90s.
How's he doing?
Magic, he's living the dream. He is the owner of 2 wonderful teams who just continue to win.
Yeah.
Well, I meant more like health-wise, but
I don't know. I'm not good friends with him, so I wouldn't know.
He's
You don't have to be friends.
yeah, he's going to outlive us all, Julie.
Nice.
He's in very good shape.
I love
He looks
that.
healthy and hearty, and he disproved a lot of the myths.
Yes.
I
Great
mean,
storyteller too.
if you go back and look at the tapes and listen to some of the broadcasts or go back and watch the documentary, I mean, it's amazing how he changed the perceptions in like a
Yes.
year. People thought it was a death sentence.
Yeah.
Well, that's because it usually was.
Yeah,
But
people saw Rock Hudson. People saw a bunch of people that they knew dying.
yeah, yeah.
Freddie Mercury. Yeah.
Freddie Mercury, Rock Hudson, very, very famous
Oh.
people.
Anywho,
I'm
he's
glad he's
still
doing
alive.
well because I like him, obviously. Everyone does.
If you don't like Magic Johnson, there's something wrong.
I was going to
Okay.
say he's hard not to like. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a great storyteller too.
It's almost unethical to not like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who do you have, Jay? I think I'm gonna go with Knicks in Minnesota.
I think that sounds logical. I think Oklahoma's just too scrambled, and Minnesota has been through some of these battles before, even though they haven't gotten this far. But they've beaten some good. I mean, they knocked out the Nuggets last year.
Yeah. Didn't they? Who was it they lost to last year? They got to the conference finals last year, didn't they?
Yeah, and they lost to Dallas.
Dallas. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. They had a guy that was I understand was pretty good, Luka Doncic.
Yeah. What happened to that Luka guy?
I have no idea.
I heard Dallas
we'll
just
have
thought
to
he
look
was.
it up.
I heard Dallas thought he was fat and just wanted to trade him.
Yeah,
Well, the one
they
guy
got rid of him. Yeah.
Jose
Alvarado.
He has some medicine that might help.
Yeah, I don't know if the league might like that though, because I heard it's got testosterone in it, and
Yeah, which it's like, oh, we need to watch out for those.
man,
Yeah, talk about side effects for that medicine.
The only thing worse than fat Luka would be rage Luka.
Right. Oh my God, that's a good point.
One last thing I want to talk about for basketball. Giannis is going to be having a meeting with head brass there in Milwaukee this week to discuss his future.
Okay.
And I've heard some rumblings that he may be on the move west.
Well, that's a good thing because there are no stars in the West.
No, there's aging, flaming, fizzling stars.
True.
I mean, I heard that Luka guy did go west. I think he went to LA, became a big star there. So
yeah,
did pretty well for himself.
Yeah.
But I guess there's rumblings he might be heading to team up with LeBron, and the Lakers are going to try to bring Luka back, and because LeBron needs help.
Yeah, he does.
I mean, 2 more years, Bryce will be there. So
I know. So he's going to have his own little. They're going to have to create an expansion team just for LeBron.
Yeah. Well, just wait to 5 years from now when they're playing in the Big Three. That would be awesome. Because literally 6 minutes after LeBron's out of the league, so will Bryce and Brian.
Yeah. Well,
6 minutes.
Bronny did improve though as the season went along. He did improve very much. I will give him that. He put the work in, but he won't. I don't think he'll be bounced around like Alonzo and Melo.
Yeah, let's just give him a minute because most of the people who are really good are in their 30s, so it took some time.
So, Knicks in Minnesota, is that what we're agreeing on?
Yeah, Knicks in Minnesota.
All right, we can deal with that. We can deal with that.
Yeah.
I personally, I like Anthony Edwards. I think he's right there.
I think the Knicks will probably go 7.
With Indiana?
Yes. I think it'll be an awesome series.
Man, Jalen Brunson's he's hot right now.
I think I reminded y'all a couple of weeks ago. You have to remember, Dallas didn't just drop Doncic. They released Brunson.
Yeah.
He didn't get traded. 2 of the top 5 vote getters in this year's MVP race 2 years ago were on Dallas. Think about that.
Fire Nico. That's all I keep hearing. Fire Nico. I wonder why.
I'm not going to say anything. I mean, Nico got the luck of all luck with the ping pong balls. So
I guess. Anything else for basketball? I'm good on basketball.
no, I'm good. It's going to be a very non-star studded NBA Finals, but
You know what?
uh,
I might actually watch it.
I mean,
I'm actually tuned in to the conference finals this year.
they're new stars,
Yeah,
Mhm.
so
yeah.
they're all new stars. So yeah,
Like all my life, the Knicks have kind of been bad. So
true.
this is new for me.
I was fixed to say Ryan, mine too.
I don't even like the Knicks, but like we can
But
move
you
on to the
had,
pond.
yeah, to the pond. You had some notes from the Frozen.
Yeah, the frozen pond. Yeah. So let's start with Winnipeg. Um, Mark Scheifele. He played after the unexpected death of his father in Game 6. He found out, I think, early that morning or the night before, I think. But he decided he was going to play. He actually scored the opening goal of Game 6.
Wow.
Yeah. So that, yeah. So Alexander Ovechkin, he's planning to return next season for year 21
Sure.
with the Caps. His Capitals actually just got eliminated by the Carolina Hurricanes. So let's actually go to the playoffs, shall we?
Let's get in there.
I know you guys haven't watched it. I know. Oh, Jay,
Seen some.
you told me you watched the Carolina game. Okay, you watched the closeout game.
That was
All
just
right.
for us, Ryan. No, I'm
Just for us.
kidding.
Okay, just for us.
No,
Okay.
I'm going to watch more, especially as it gets to the Stanley Cup final.
You
I was
should.
trying to make a
It's
point of watching some of that. Yes.
good. I'm glad. If I make a point to watch basketball, you're gonna make a point to watch hockey.
Well, I mean, the great thing about that, they each know that they stagger the games. They're very
Mhm.
smart. There's
Mhm.
not an NBA final game the same night as the NFL,
Right.
NHL
Mm.
final game. So
Right.
Nice.
good planning.
Well, at least they're doing something right with the scheduling. All right, let's start in the West. Dallas takes out Winnipeg in 6. It was a pretty good series. Really, really good goaltending for the most part. Hellebuck, he locked the Vezina up. I'm telling you, he locked the Vezina up in probably the end of January. He's the best goalie in the world. He struggled in the series against St. Louis on the road. I think we talked about that.
Yeah.
He couldn't stop a beach ball in some of
It
those
was
games.
just on the road, you said. It
Yeah.
was a weird thing.
Yeah.
So he was on this one medicine. No, I'm just kidding.
He couldn't stop a beach ball. Like he was made of Swiss cheese. And he comes into this series and the struggles continued for some of the games. Dallas takes game 1 3-2. He comes back game 2, shuts out Dallas 4-0. Gives up 5 in game 3, loses 5-2. Dallas takes game 4 3-1. He actually gave up a hat trick. I think it was Granlund. Had a hattie. So he outscored the entire Winnipeg team 3-1. Game 5, Hellebuck comes back in 4-0 Winnipeg. Extend it to 6. They lose in overtime 2-1. Dallas takes a series. I think it was the first penalty the entire game was called with like 14 seconds left in the third period.
Wow.
And it was on Scheifele. So he gets to sit 2 minutes in the box, 14 seconds left in regulation. He goes back to the box in overtime and watches his team lose like I think it was like 5 seconds left in his power play. In the penalty kill, they give up a goal.
Oh, man.
Boom. Hellebuck had no chance. He was screened by his own teammate. Couldn't see the puck. Series over. Game over. Dallas moves on. And who's waiting for them? Connor McJesus. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Stuart Skinner. The team that knocked out Dallas last year in the conference final in 7. So 2 years in a row, they meet in the conference final. Dallas, Edmonton. Edmonton took out Vegas in 5. Game 1, Edmonton took 4-2. Game 2, Edmonton goes overtime 5-4. Takes the series lead 2-0 there. Multi-goal comebacks, actually, in the first 2 games. I think they had like 5 straight multi-goal comebacks in the playoffs. Game 3, we talked about it last week. Vegas took that one 4-3 because of a buzzer beater tip-in that went off Leon Draisaitl's stick with like 0.4 seconds left.
0.4. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
And then Stuart Skinner was like, all right, enough of this. 3-0 Edmonton, 1-0 Edmonton in overtime in Game 5. Series over. Stuart Skinner hasn't allowed a goal in 127 minutes. So,
wow.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So that series kicks off on Wednesday. Dallas actually took the season series 2-1.
Okay.
So hopefully that continues. Over to the East, starting Florida. Florida knocks out Toronto in 7.
Oh.
Toronto fans are losing their minds. They're melting down. Toronto once again loses a Game 7. They haven't won a Game 7 since 2004. It is so disappointing to be a Maple Leafs fan. Austin Matthews, their captain, he looked defeated. He had 1 goal the entire series. Mitch Marner looked defeated, was pissed off last night. They went down 3-0. It was like 3-0 in the second period, I think. Toronto scores, make it 3-1, and like 30 seconds later, boom, 4-1 Florida.
Well, what we need to ask is who they pissed off that they didn't allow in the Hall of Fame.
So Florida takes Game 7 6-1. Game 1 went to Toronto. Game 2 went to Toronto 5-4, 4-3. I think I told you last week it was tip-ins. There was a shot taken. There was a Toronto stick in it. Bobrovsky had no chance on a lot of those shots. Toronto got some of their own medicine thrown back at them in Game 3. Brad Marchand throws a shot at the net. It goes off of Morgan Riley, goes over Wall's head, into the goal, into the net. 5-4 Florida, overtime. Bobrovsky, 2-0 shutout in Game 4. 6-1 Florida in Game 5. Toronto returns the favor 2-0 in Game 6, and then last night they just imploded, and Florida was like, "We're done with you. We're sick of playing with you. Get out of here." I think the worst part was it was in Toronto.
They lost a home game.
Yeah,
it's not great. It doesn't add any positive. Yeah,
it's just so. It's so they've been outscored. God, I want to say it's 29-7 in Game 7s since the last time they won.
7 is not their lucky number.
No. And here's a funny fact for you. Brad Marchand is actually 5-0 against Toronto in Game 7s.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of funny, to be honest, as not a Toronto fan. Anywho, let's move over to Washington. Carolina versus Washington. The Hurricanes take them out in 5. 2-1 OT win in Game 1 for Carolina. 3-1 win for Washington in Game 2. And then Carolina said, we're done. 4-0, 5-2, 3-1. I'll go to Carolina. Ovechkin was held to 1 goal the entire series.
Wow. Dang.
Yeah. So it'll be Carolina and Florida. This is the second meeting in 3 years in the conference final between the two teams. Last time they met in the conference final, Florida swept them. Right off the face of the earth. Get out of here. Yeah. Florida actually took the season series 2-1. So it should be a good series. Frederick Anderson's playing out of his mind right now, and so is Bobrovsky. As you can see, he's given up 4 goals in the last 3 games. So,
wow.
If you want to get technical,
its own special kind of record.
If you want to get technical, 4 goals in the last 4 games. So,
we didn't want to get technical.
No, I wanted to throw that shutout in there for him. Bob deserves that shutout. Yeah,
Bob
Bobrovsky. Yeah, that's hockey.
That's hockey. So we'll move into the odd-shaped spheroid, which is the football. Okay, and we'll start with the football that actually matters right now, which is the football which is actually being played right now, which is spring football, which is the UFL. FL. And I'm going to break it up this week by having Julie start with what she's been looking at
I
as
think
far as
you
the
should start
UFL.
because I'm going to talk about the end of the season. So I think you should talk about,
The current
yeah,
thing.
right,
Okay.
right. And then I'll finish it off with,
Well, what's happening is, as usual, the cream is rising to the top as we get towards the end of the season. And I've been paying attention to some of the top teams, but I've been mainly following the Memphis Showboats. Had a game on Friday night against another team which had fallen on hard times with the San Antonio Brahmas.
mm,
And as each losing game has continued uh, for the Showboats, they've gotten moved down a little bit by little bit in the announcing team until they had to bring up like a whole new announcing team just to announce
oh, wow.
the San Antonio team. I guess no one else would cover them this weekend. But anyway, they had some very interesting things to say about the game. But 2-1-6 teams, um, three turnovers each between them. Um, the Memphis Showboats won in overtime. I put an article out. You can find it on the Forkball. Of course, Julie um, and also Jamie and Philip Riggs. They each contribute a article every week, so we've covered
Every
them wall
week, every game, every week. That's our
every week.
slogan.
UFL wall to wall, yeah,
Hmm.
coverage. Four journalists, four games every weekend. And this was a good game. Three turnovers each team.
That's
There was a
despicable.
pick six. There was a big man interception. There was a guy that I'd never heard of playing for the Showboats. The first two times he got the ball, he went for 78 yards on his own drive.
Wow.
I know. And just overall, lots of really interesting thing, including the two starting quarterbacks combining for just a flaming 130 yards passing between them. So
Oh,
that was
Ooh,
not good, but the
oh boy.
running backs made up for it. And in fact, the quarterback ran for almost as much as he passed for it. So for the Showboats, but that was interesting. They had a very good beer snake on with the St. Louis team this week.
As they
Uh,
should.
and as we get down towards the end of the season, I don't know, maybe Julie wants to talk about tonight. The weird playoff situation where some of the teams may not be getting a home game. It's like very
Oh,
kind of controversial. We'll talk about that probably next week is week 9.
yeah.
So they haven't finalized it, but it's looking that way with the stadium situations.
Hmm.
Um, and just overall a very good year for the UFL.
Yeah.
The players are better, the games are competitive.
Yeah.
Um,
A little more
uh,
exciting than last year, that's for damn
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and if you watch the pod regularly, to know from me to saying, nine, you know, 8 weeks in the books, and I have very few issues with officiating. That's
Yeah,
literally
that's
saying
true.
something. They're very on the nose, and they have auto reviews where if the official in the booth sees a problem, they fix it without having to resort to using a challenge flag. So it means that usually if there's a challenge flag, like 90% of the time it fails.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's just a limited amount of penalties in any game, it feels like.
There is, and it still seems very cleanly done.
Yeah, yeah,
You can actually throw a challenge flag if you feel there was a penalty, which is not done in the NFL.
right,
So that's a
right.
very nice thing. And very few of those ever actually uh,
And
get
they
caught.
barely happen either. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, I will say that, yeah, like they have a play it out sort of theme, but they can do that because they don't have a lot of, because players are pretty good.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. And last weekend has some very close games. It's unusual with 4 games every weekend. There might be one drubbing, but that's about it for a weekend. You never see 2 or 3 games that are just like blowouts, like you will in week 1 and week 2 of the NCAA season this year.
Yeah,
So
let me.
anyway, that's about all I've got for the UFL.
Yeah, it was a pretty close week, except for the game that I'm covering, which is the Panthers and the Roughnecks. But everybody else, it was 2 points, 1 point, 3 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very close.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm going to mention
Okay.
that we do have the playoffs decided already.
Okay.
Um, and that's sort of normal for, I would say, a smaller like spring league, that there usually is some kind of skill differential, although I will say this year that it was less clear, less obvious, and seemed to be like there's still some struggling teams just like we have in the NFL, but the overall quality was better and the standings were closer. But still we are in a place where we can identify everyone already. Um for the XFL conference, we have the DC Defenders and the St. Louis Battlehawks, who have the same win-loss record, kind of neck and neck over here, 6-2. Um, so the Battlehawks, I believe, lost to the Defenders. That's why they're number 2 in the list. But they had a winning streak of 4, and the Defenders have only had a winning streak of 2. So, yeah, the Battlehawks struggled a bit more against their conferences, but overall, like, very strong. For the USFL conference, we are all excited to report that the Birmingham Stallions, for the first time, are not leading. We actually have the Michigan Panthers at 6-2, and the Stallions are 5-3, which I know everybody's elated, as I am, about this. The Panthers have a winning streak of 3 games. Have done really well in our conference, and I'm just thrilled it's somebody other than the Stallions, although they are also in the playoffs, of course. But yeah, those are our 4 teams, which I would say, I feel like the Brahmas did better last year, but I would say nothing about this is particularly surprising. Although I am excited about the fact that the Panthers have finally overcome the Stallions. That one is, I would not have anticipated that. But yeah, definitely a pretty close run here. And most of the playoff teams are 6-2, which is definitely not how it was before. So I feel like we're dealing with some similarly talented teams. And obviously with the Panthers, we do love the Nakua family's involvement in that team, even if it means a couple fans get slapped here and there. But yes, I love watching the Nakua brothers do their thing. So very, very exciting. I'm actually excited about the championship and stuff for the first time in a long time, because it really felt like it didn't matter what anybody else did, it was always Birmingham for like a while now. So
True. That's true. So I
I
think we
cannot
had
tell
some.
you how much that gets on my nerves. I think I've made that pretty clear, but
Yeah, but
I
a 3-year-old league with just one champion 3 years in a
yes,
row is just very boring seeming,
I
especially
I
when
I gloat every time they lose.
they originated from like WWE. That's
Yeah.
just a little too much, you know.
Yeah. And they had an
So
attitude about it too. And Lord knows I don't like an attitude.
okay, I mind my p's and q's on here then.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, so the
let's
Panthers are
I
leading.
I think let's see, we'll be ready for the NFL, which had some weird goings on this week. It seems like a lot more than you would think. in this much of the off season.
What do you mean by that, there, Jay?
We had a big signing at quarterback.
We did, yeah. Let's talk about Brock Purdy.
Okay,
Already.
Mr. Irrelevant.
Well, the Niners just made him richer than he already was. He made like $2.65 million his entire career. He's gonna make a hell of a lot more than that in 1 year. He signs a 5-year, $265 million extension with $181 million guaranteed. Yeah. So he has 9,518 career yards, 64 career touchdowns, and 27 career interceptions. He's been to 2 NFC Championship games and 1 Super Bowl appearance, which he lost to the Chiefs.
Well, everybody loses to the Chiefs.
Everybody,
so.
yeah.
Yes. That's like saying you lost to the Patriots last decade.
Yeah, everybody's. Man, I said this a couple months ago. When he gets paid, it's gonna remind me of Jared Goff being paid in LA when he got his big deal after making the Super Bowl and losing and performing quite underwhelmingly. And I did some research, actually. Brock Purdy's career numbers are actually almost identical to Jared Goff's career numbers when he got paid in LA. In fact, Goff has had 9,581 yards, 65 touchdowns, and 26 interceptions. He also made the NFC Championship game and made a Super Bowl before getting his contract extension.
Yeah, but thankfully not everybody is Sean McVay, so this story might turn out very differently. I have never forgiven Sean McVay for that, as we know.
Well, McVay and Shanahan are friends, so.
Yeah, but just because you have a friend doesn't mean that you're the same level of jackass in all situations.
True.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll take that as a personal compliment. You don't know my friends. But no, I mean, the thing about it is that I keep thinking about, as a Cowboys fan, I kept thinking about Dak. I think that was the year of his playoff win, and then they gave him the big contract.
You know,
Which one?
Microphone, the YouTuber.
This last one, yeah.
He always talks about how quarterbacks always fall off after they get that big extension because then they kind of that's his running theory, and I can definitely see like that being a thing.
Right.
But if anybody's not going to do that, I feel like it's going to be Brock Purdy because he knows what it feels like to be irrelevant. So he might have that Drew Brees chip on his shoulder to keep going. But that is kind of a theme. Dak,
Well,
I mean, I feel like I haven't seen him play in so long.
I know. I can't forget he's there.
Yeah.
He's not really relevant because they're usually not even competing for the by the time it's mid-season, they're not competing for their division, and by the end, they might be competing for a wild card, maybe.
Maybe.
Right.
Yeah, but he's unusually bad, I would say, in this situation. Like, yeah, he's not representative, I don't think.
I don't know. I feel like they were paid for him. I feel like they could have saved a little bit of money.
I feel that way too, but I guess they're just really trying to let the world know that they feel really confident. I don't know.
They felt confident in Jimmy G too.
Well, he's still
what happened
beautiful.
to him?
He's still as beautiful as he was now as he was.
They gave Jimmy G a contract for being 5 teams that had nothing to win, nothing to lose.
You know what you call that, Ryan? You call it pretty privilege. Pretty privilege. We tend to give people who are pretty more leeway evolutionarily. That's what that was.
I suppose so.
And I'm not even mad at it.
I guess not.
Look, when you look like that, mm,
Yeah, it just I don't know. They got rid of Debo. I told you guys once they
that
got rid
shit
of
pissed me
Debo.
off.
Once they got rid of Debo, I was like, they're making room for Brock. They're gonna give him a giant deal that he didn't deserve.
That really upset me because
If they didn't, you go ahead.
they put Debo out there with walking pneumonia and then wondered
Right.
why he didn't perform well, and then he didn't perform well the weeks after that. But I'm like, but you made him go out there with walking pneumonia. Maybe that would contribute to his overall level of success after that 1 week. Like, I don't know. Like, way to give him a fuck you on the way out. There was no salvaging that, I don't think.
Yeah.
Like, they had this plan for a while because you don't just do that to your player, I don't think.
So I just want to bounce something off you guys. Who's his running back? CMC, right?
Oh, is he still kicking?
Yeah, when he's not hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
For those 2 years that Brock was playing out of his mind, looking like he should have been picked in the first 3 rounds, it was CMC, right?
Yeah, but hasn't he been injured for most of those years?
He was injured last year.
He's been injured more than just last year.
Hmm.
Yeah, he spent weeks out.
He had 2 healthy seasons his first 2 years with San Francisco. Last year he had that Achilles problem and then he tore his PCL. Listen to Jibber. Anyways, he's just handing it off to CMC. Same thing Goff did to Gurley. Hand it off to the back, open it up for me to pass, and make myself look good. That's all I'm saying.
So he had a lot of.
That's all I'm saying. They overpaid for somebody who just hands the ball off and makes himself look better.
And then they have Jordan Mason too.
Right. Yeah. But when CMC's not running the ball and Mason's hurt and they're down to their 5th running back and Debo's out and Ayuk's out, what's Purdy look like? Shit.
I don't think it's that cut and dry, but because like even when CMC does play, they can't always play him that much because he gets injured after like 4 seconds. Like he's not like a present strong member of the team. He's always gone. So I don't know that like he's really has been moving he was injury prone before he even got there.
Right.
At Penn State?
No, at Carolina.
At Carolina?
Yeah. Okay. His last 2 years in Carolina, he played like 4 games.
Yeah, they've had to baby him this whole way through. It's not like he's I'm trying to think of who that, like a Kenny Walker or something, where he's out there every play when he's not playing. Like, I don't know. I don't think that they're leaning on him that heavily. I think they just get excited when he's breathing on the sidelines. Oh. So I don't know if he's really, like, obviously he does good things, but I don't think he's been okay, National Geographic, chill. I don't think he's been a constant, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm remembering it differently, but I just feel like he's not somebody you can rely on, or it's like the biggest game-altering thing. Because, like, he'll play really well and then he'll get beat up again. So, like, even when he's, like, on fire, like, he's going to get injured that game, for sure. Or the next week. Like,
he's been used pretty heavily his 2 years he's been in San Francisco.
I guess Jay, we'll see. But
what do you think, Jay?
I mean, I think he's overpaid. I mean, the other 5 quarterbacks just below him have actually done something. I mean, you look at Burrows, you look at Burrows, you look at Mahomes, you look at all these people. They've at least taken somebody to the 2nd round, the conference championship, and without
with nothing.
Well, I mean, Mahomes literally the last 2 years has had nothing. you know.
Yeah, well, other than the rest, but yeah.
And then Burrows, he had some good receivers, but he had no running back to speak of.
And he hasn't had an offensive line for ever.
Yeah,
And struggling with his own injuries.
Yeah.
That has really impacted
But
him.
you look at the guys below him that are being paid less than him per year now. They're guys that can win you ball games with just their arm.
yeah. The Mayfields, the Tuas, all these guys, they were like a tier below him in pay, which is crazy because we were talking about the crazy contract Tua got like
I
2
don't
years
even know
ago.
if Tua is worth that contract.
I
He's
don't think
not.
he's gonna
But
last.
He's not.
he had the best. I think he had the most yards in the league last year, which shocked me. He
So
had a
does
really
Burrow.
good year. No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think it was Tua.
Well, let's do some research.
Okay.
Okay.
No,
We'll do some research. But I just
I don't think anybody but the 49ers think that this was like a logical price. I was not making the argument
You're
that
right.
it made sense. I'm just making the argument that I don't think CMC is carrying the team. But I don't think that it makes sense in any fashion. They're just doing it. Like I said, I think they might just be trying to make a statement or something.
It's the system and that he's in. It really is. But Burrow did lead the league in passing yards last year with 4,900 yards.
Okay.
Which was 300 more than Goff.
Okay. What was Tua? 44?
Tua had 2,800.
Wow.
He missed 5 games, remember?
Oh, okay.
Or he missed like 1,000 years with melted brain.
Yeah, that's why I think like it doesn't make sense to invest a lot of money because I think he's literally going to be told that he can't play anymore soon. Like,
Right.
I know that he won't protect his own brain for any reason, including wife, kids, family. Nothing like that seems to matter, but eventually they're going to tell him in this day and age, in this era of neurology, they're going to be like, get off the field. So, like, it feels
right.
I kind of doubt.
But, anyways, that's that. There's some more news from San Francisco, though.
Okay.
They just signed Fred Warner to a 3-year, $63 million extension, which is $21 million per year, $56 million guaranteed. And their owner, Jed York, says 3 parties of the Bay Area are working to complete a sale of 6% of his ownership. So they're trying to buy 6% of his ownership. Yeah. So.
Well, Fred Warner is one of the few people on the defense where I feel like you remember his name from year to year. Because, like,
I am so indifferent to this team because, like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, when I think of like standouts on their defense, Fred Warner comes to mind. Like, to me, that makes sense.
I really don't know anybody on that defense anymore other than Fred Warner.
Yeah. Because everybody talks about their offense and the defense sort of it goes under the radar. It's kind of always been that way. So, but what I do know is definitely Frank Warner. So this makes sense.
Yeah, Fred he's everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they just lost a lot of players on the defense too.
Oh, good. I'm sure he's
Ward, Hufunga, they're all gone. Greenlaw, I think it's not Greenlaw. Is it Greenlaw?
Yeah, that's the other guy that most of us know.
Or Kinlaw.
I think
it's some law. They're gone.
So who's he gonna have? No, they're trying to pay him to stick around because they're like, dear God, you're the only one left.
Quick question. I know we covered every week. Where's Aaron Rodgers going?
Don't care. Hopefully retirement.
Go wilderness retreat.
Probably into a dark room with some mind-expanding drug. I don't know.
I gotta tell you, I think nothing sounds scarier to me than like a silence retreat where you just spend lots of time alone in the dark. Like, to me, like the concept of a darkness retreat sounds like a living hell, but
you got a lot of intrusive thoughts too, don't you?
I do have intrusive thoughts as a common. I have a diagnosis with OCD, and intrusive thoughts are definitely one of those. One of the symptoms. Great. Yeah, so
awesome.
I will sit over here suspiciously quiet.
So, Baltimore's giving Derrick Henry 2-year, $30 million extension.
I guess that does make sense.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to make Lamar look good.
Okay.
But
He hasn't done a poop run since 2018, and that's disappointing.
we are coming upon the league meetings once again. They're going to talk about the tush push, and it's likely probably 98% chance of getting banned.
Okay.
Or altered.
Okay.
I refuse to talk about this again.
And they're also looking into changing playoff format. Where
that's the worst idea.
You know what? You were talking about home teams not getting playoff games in the UFL, right?
Right.
So, sorry, playoff teams not getting a home game. I actually don't mind the idea because they do it in basketball, okay, by your record, right?
They do.
You're seeded by record.
But they don't reclassify depending on whether there's upset or not.
What?
They don't reclassify based on whether there was an upset or not. Like if this year the 6 beat the number 3 in the West, okay?
Yes.
And so the number 2 seed is playing the number 6 seed,
Mm-hmm.
and the number 1 seed is stuck with the number 4 seed. You
right.
know? So
yeah.
the number 2 seed technically has an easier way
mm-hmm.
than the number 1 seed. What they're talking about is like shuffling it up.
No, what I heard, they're actually talking about, you're based by record, So if you win the division, big whoop, you still played in a division that had a combined, 22 wins. And you had 9 of them. Congratulations. I don't know. I like the idea, the concept. I thought I wouldn't like the 7 seeds, but I end up liking them a little bit more with the 1 bye rather than the 2 byes. I don't know. We'll have to see. Worst thing they can do is always change it.
I don't know enough about this to make an informed opinion at this time.
And knowing Goodell, they'll probably change it after a year and be like, oh, this is stupid. Let's change it back. Which, whatever.
Another note.
Yeah, that's what I thought about the NBA in-season tournament, but they did not look at it like everybody.
Oh, I know. That's
and say too. It's stupid. They said, "Oh, good, another $100 million on a $40 million contract for people to look at us like we're stupid."
What
to
is
grab
it?
an extra $100 million?
What is it for, anyways? It's just a trophy.
Yes.
Yeah, it's stupid. They could have done that. They could have done that for like All-Star Weekend. 3-on-3 tournaments. There you go. There's your All-Star game.
Well, the All-Star, they played around with it so much. Every year they say it stinks. We're going back to something different. They are looking at whether they can do it U.S. versus world like they do with the NHL. They've almost got enough international players to be able to do that now.
Yes.
I mean, I literally think the starting 5 would be better for the world team. It's just once you get down to 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you put Doncic and Jokic on one team, I mean, literally you could, and Giannis, you could literally go down to the YMCA and just pick up 7 guys, and maybe beat the U.S. team. Because the U.S. team, 3 of the top 10 guys are 37 and higher.
I don't know, man. We'll have to wait and see what happens with this league meeting vote. Like I said, I know the tush push is probably being banned or changed, and likely getting new playoff format.
Yeah. So I think we almost reached the end of the NFL discussion, and so if everybody wants to go around, if anybody's got anything to plug or to push or anything like that.
Other than the playoffs?
Playoffs, okay.
Watch the playoffs. Just watch them.
Okay, I'll watch some NHL.
Okay, if I'm all right, I will let you know when I watch an NBA game. You have to watch an NHL game.
That sounds fair, because I believe if you watch like an Indiana game against the Knicks in the Garden, I think you'd be impressed. That's going to be an electric atmosphere.
It's not that I don't watch basketball. It's just I don't care to watch basketball.
I understand.
I don't know.
For me, I've got nothing much going on except the weekly UFL article and covering the showboats until they are until they're finished with their season, which will be two more games. They'll be mathematically eliminated. And also, I'm hoping to have another article about golf out. So
Ooh,
we'll be looking forward to that. I may be talking about why golf has become so boring that all that they
hey,
talk about is the off course things with golf.
Yeah,
hey.
that is true.
Speaking of golf,
Yeah,
Scotty Scheffler just won the Players
he
or the PGA, I think.
PGA. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. And he
Mhm.
won it with his backup driver because his driver was found non-conforming, and he just reached back in his
Oh,
bag, the driver he hadn't used for a
yeah,
year, said,
yeah,
"No, no prob, dude. I'm Scotty Scheffler. It's not the equipment. I'm
yeah,
the equipment."
yeah. I
And he
Oh,
guess
went. He mowed them down. Yeah,
it was him, Rory, and a couple other guys had to.
yeah,
Their drivers were found to be not up to standard. They were too
right.
thin.
interesting.
They were too
And
springy because they were too thin
yeah, and
Hmm.
on the face.
you
Yeah,
know who they tested was the top 50.
yeah,
They didn't test any of the people that were marginal. They just
yeah,
tested the people that had the actual chance to win.
I guess
And
yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
that makes sense, but you gotta
You
know
gotta test everybody.
that goes against the spirit. They don't do
Yeah.
that for NASCAR. They're not just testing, Darrell Waltrip Jr.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
it's kind of disrespectful to number 51. Like, that could be the kind of thing to put a chip on somebody's shoulder.
yeah,
Um, yeah. Uh, Fingers crossed. Prove them wrong with their springy
yeah,
clubs.
yeah. So
Well,
what you
that would
got
be
going on,
exciting.
Julie?
I'm looking forward to that, Jay. Well, even though I apparently didn't know what month it was because I thought there was no Heritage months in May, there's actually two. So I have been writing Jewish American Heritage Month articles as well as the Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And I think also Native Hawaiian is now in that title somewhere. Asian American, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders is, I believe, the correct. And then, so I'm writing those, and then just UFL coverage of whatever game I get each week. So I have gotten a chance to get to know many teams, which I appreciate. And so, yeah, you'll see UFL, Jewish people, and someone that falls under the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander group. We've had some pretty exciting ones already. Patrick Chung and I'm trying to remember the other. Greg George, I think. Anyway, he was considered the lone Jewish person. He was a kicker from South Africa. He was not the only one, but I did find that he was published that way, like in at least one really significant article. So anyway, he's kind of a big deal. So we talk about him and his accomplishments. Super interesting people with just like incredible backgrounds. Patrick Chung's mother was an R&B artist, which is like the coolest thing ever. Not R&B, I'm sorry, reggae, I believe.
Reggae, okay,
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Both his parents are from Jamaica,
That would make sense then. Yeah,
or at least his dad spent a lot of time there. And so, like, we get to know Patrick Chung. He was a Patriot. You probably have heard of him. He's won many Super Bowls. Anyways, yeah. So definitely tune in because I am picking really fascinating people this time around. Really digging deep. Let's see. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell because if we get more subscribers, I can afford to get a bathtub that will accommodate our research research development team. And so, take one for the team. Make sure to subscribe. We're here every week putting out some great content, and we appreciate all of our subscribers. We couldn't do it without you. So, yeah, that's it. We'll see you next week for 75.
Okay, bye.